Hi, Sue North. It's great to see you again. And we're so happy that we're still able to connect using amazing technology. Today, for your science class, we're connecting to Kristen Jamerson at Sea Turtle Inc. in South Padre Island in Texas. And she, like all of us, is in isolation, but she's able to go into work because they are at a place where there are sea turtles that need to be looked after. So today we're going to talk about plastics in the ocean and the human impact that has affected the ecosystems, leaving plastics floating around in the ocean. And we're going to meet some animals that plastic has affected directly. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kristen.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Kristen Jamerson, and I am coming to you from Sea Turtle Inc. on South Padre Island, Texas. So I'm really excited that you guys are still able to learn about sea turtles. I know we all are struggling with our shelter in place, staying at home. So I hope you guys are able to learn a lot over the next 45 minutes. I am sitting in a sea turtle hospital. So I'm going to bring up some pictures up on the screen to share with you guys. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm going to take you down into our hospital so you guys are able to see some of our current patients. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a screen share. Now, I do apologize ahead of time because this map does not have Canada included on it, but you guys can get an idea as to where you are situated. But to give you a better understanding of where I am coming to you from, South Padre Island is all the way down at the southern tip of Texas. We're just about as far south as you can go, right along the Mexico border. So very, very far away from you guys. But I think as we go through our presentations and things that you guys have learned about in the past, all of this information really does link us all together in terms of trash impacting our wildlife as well as the environment in general. So the theme of our program today is trash free, no debris. So to get started, I want all of you guys to close your eyes for a second. And I want you guys to think about standing out on a beach. I want you to think of the most beautiful beach that you can possibly picture. I want you to think of everything that you would be feeling, like the sand underneath your feet, the wind blowing through your hair, the water hitting your legs. Think of everything you would be hearing, like the waves crashing up on shore, the seagulls flying overhead. And think about everything you'd be smelling, like the salt in the air. Now, open your eyes. You guys probably imagined a really beautiful beach like this one. That's what I always picture when I do that little activity. But today, we are going to be taking a closer look. So, did you guys know there are beaches in the world that look like this? Now, I'm going to give you guys a second to look at this picture, and I want you to look really closely and think of items that you spot that do not belong out on a beach. I'll give you guys about 30 seconds or so. A lot of them are really obvious, right? So some things that you guys might have pictured right away, all this plastic. Looks like lots of plastic water bottles, big plastic, it could be oil containers or canisters. Down in the bottom right, you'll see that lime green bottle. A little to the left, it looks like there's a black flip-flop next to kind of what looks like a loaf of bread. I'm not really sure what that is. But lots and lots of trash are out littering our environment and our beaches all the time. And unfortunately, there are areas here on South Padre Island that do look like this at certain times of year. So I want you guys to think about what are some of the most common things that are found on beaches that don't belong there. So if I were to go out and do a beach cleanup here on South Padre Island, what are some of the most common things that you guys think I would find out on the beach? You guys can say them out loud if you want, if you have a pen and paper in front of you. You can write them down. I'll give you 30 seconds. Think about things that are big as well as things that are small. Now, we saw some of those items in that previous picture, like those large water bottles and things. But some of the most common things that are on beaches throughout our entire world include items that are quite a bit smaller, like bottle caps. A lot of people automatically think of bottles, but those little caps, they're a lot smaller, and they get a lot of them really easily get lost in the sand. We also see plastic straws, cigarette butts. We all know smoking is bad for our health. It's also bad for the environment because, unfortunately, a lot of people flick those little cigarette butts on the ground and they get really easily lost in the environment. Plastic bags, you guys probably got that one. Plastic water bottles, as well as snack wrappers like chips, granola bars, candy bar wrappers. These are 6 of the most common things that are found on beaches throughout the entire world. Now, marine debris, what is it? Who knows the definition of marine debris? I'll give you guys a second to think about that. Think about those 2 words, marine and debris. Now, a lot of you probably said trash out in the water, right? And that is what marine debris is. So it's anything solid or man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. So anything that we use every day that does not get disposed of properly can end up as marine debris, even things that end up out in the water by accident. Now, we talked about lots of plastics already, but what are some things that might end up out in the environment that end up in the water by accident? If you guys look at this picture kind of through my text here, you'll be able to get an idea. I'll give you guys a second to kind of look at that photo. So what's tangled up in that photo is a big mass of fishing nets. There's lots of ropes tangled in there. So those are examples of marine debris too. So an example of marine debris floating out in the water, of course, here is a picture of a plastic bottle. Here are some bags and other pieces of trash that are out floating in the water. Does this look like a good habitat to you guys? Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. I don't think this would be a habitat that sea turtles would want to live in or any wildlife. And this definitely doesn't look like water I would want to spend any time in either. So we're going to talk a little bit about microplastics today. And I kind of jumped ahead, so I'm going to go back. Who can tell me, or who can say out loud, what microplastics are? Now think about those 2 words, micro and plastic. So microplastics are tiny little pieces of plastic, right? Now, how are those plastics formed? Now, if you imagine I have a water bottle that I got at the gas station and I drink all that water, I don't care about the environment. So I throw that plastic water bottle on the ground. It's really windy here on South Padre Island, and that wind is gonna roll that water bottle all over the street. It's gonna roll it onto the beach. Eventually, it's going to make its way out into the Gulf of Mexico. And while it's out floating in the water, the entire time it's out in the environment, whether on land or out in the ocean, the UV rays from the sun are shining down on that plastic. Now, how many of you have ever picked up trash that's been outside for a really long time, and when you go to pick it up, you notice that it falls apart really easily? Have any of you done that? I know I have done that with a piece of plastic I left out on my deck. I went to go finally pick it up and it just crumpled right in my hands. And that is how microplastics are formed. With all those UV rays from the sun shining on that plastic, it doesn't start to biodegrade. It just breaks into smaller and smaller pieces. And those small pieces are called microplastics. And the smaller that they get, that is when wildlife starts to mistake them more commonly for food. So here's a picture, some examples of what microplastics look like. And it is pretty much impossible for us to tell what any of these items were when they were in their full form because they've broken down so much. So if you imagine our oceans, you guys can see the little map here of North America on the right-hand side. There are currents that go throughout our oceans in the entire world. And there is a big current that you guys will see in those big swooping motions there in the blue. And you're going to see those sections that are in red. Those areas are known as gyres. Now, there are 5 main gyres throughout our oceans and lots of smaller ones too. But the one that we're going to be focusing on today is this one on the right-hand side that has all those pretty colors right in the center of it. That area is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, we're going to look at a zoomed-in version of this map. Now, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is located in a gyre that is between North America and Hawaii, so right off the coast of San Francisco there in California. You guys will see Canada up that map too. So if you guys look at this picture, you'll notice that that area, it goes from white to really dark teal. The darker the color, the higher concentration of trash there is in that area. Now, gyres are ocean currents that spin in a circle. So if you guys imagine putting your clothes in a washing machine, that washing machine is going to spin in a circle like this, and it kind of pulls your clothes to the center, and that's how it washes them. But once that washing machine turns off, those clothes will kind of spread back out, right? Now, out in the ocean, these currents never stop. They constantly keep spinning. And with that spinning current, it's going to pull things into the center of that area. And items like trash get trapped in that current and they're not able to escape. So it's constantly accumulating more and more trash as more and more trash goes out into our oceans, right? So this area is so big, it's actually more than twice the size of my state of Texas. And we have a pretty big state here where I live. But there's a ton of trash that is out there. And this isn't just trash that's floating up at the surface. It can be found at every single level of the water column, all the way down to the ocean floor. Now, how many pieces of trash do you guys think are out in the ocean right now? I'll give you guys about 30 seconds to go ahead and say to yourselves, or if you have family watching this video with you, say to your family, how many pieces of trash do you guys think are out in the ocean? Now, I always get lots of guesses for this answer. Anything from 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, up to 1,000,000 pieces. But an estimate for the number of pieces of trash that are in the ocean right now are over 5.25 trillion pieces. That's trillion with a T. That's bigger than 1,000,000. That is a lot of trash. And unfortunately, that number is growing every single day. Now, if you imagine we were to go out and do a big ocean-wide cleanup, and we were able to get every single last piece of trash out of our oceans in the entire world, and there was nothing left. They were immaculate, perfectly clean. The only things left out there were the animals and plants that were supposed to be there. We would be able to bag all of that trash in plastic bags like you see here, and we would be able to line our entire coast, not just here in Texas or here in the US or even North America. We would be able to line every single beach in the entire world, not just with one row of garbage bags like you see here, but actually with 5 throughout our entire world. That is how much trash is out in the ocean right now, which is really unfortunate. Now, if you guys take a look at this picture, I'll give you guys a second. What on earth do you guys think this is a picture of? I'll give you guys a second. If you do have pen and paper, you can go ahead and write it down. You can say it out loud if you want. I always get lots of guesses when I show people this picture. Anything ranging from jellyfish, squid. A lot of people guess it might be one of those swim caps that you wear. Could be a plastic bag. Could be a balloon. All kinds of guesses that I see. Now, if you guys did guess that this was a jellyfish or a squid, a lot of people think that. Like I said, I want you guys to show me with your hands, or hold up to the screen, show yourself, how big do you think your brain is? I'll give you guys a second. Is your brain tiny? Is it huge? What do you guys think? Now, if you guys put your fists together like this, that is about the size of your brain. Pretty decent size, right? Now, if you guys wiggle your thumb, that is the size of a sea turtle brain. Their brain is about the size of a grape. It's a lot smaller than ours, which means it's really hard for them to tell the difference between what is food and what is not. So sometimes when this trash ends up out in the environment, it can look very similar to the food that sea turtles like to eat. So for those of you that guessed my picture here was a picture of a balloon, you guys were right. But with a turtle brain that is that small, a sea turtle might think this looks like a jellyfish or a squid. And we often get turtles that come into our hospital that have eaten plastic, just like you see up on the screen. So obviously you guys are able to tell the difference, but a turtle is not able to do that. And other wildlife have a hard time telling the differences apart as well. So this is one of my favorite pictures to share. This is a photo taken by a photographer named Ben Hicks, and he is based over in Florida. And he takes a lot of beautiful nature photography, but he focuses a lot on sea turtles too because of where he lives. Now, he posted this picture on Instagram a couple years ago, and he said that he had always heard that sea turtles were mistaking trash for food every day, but he had never actually seen it for himself until one day he went out snorkeling and he came across this juvenile green sea turtle swimming through the water and this plastic bag. And he said it was the first time that he actively saw a turtle going after trash out in the water. So he was able to snap this picture before he grabbed that plastic bag and put it in his pocket. But chances are, had he not been there, that turtle most likely would have eaten that trash. It could have gotten really sick. It could have ended up at a sea turtle hospital in Florida, or the turtle could have even eventually died from eating this trash out in the ocean. Now, we get a lot of juvenile green sea turtles, similar in size to the one that you guys will see in this picture, and I am going to show you guys those turtles here in a second. Now, this is something that I have learned a lot about in the last couple years, and it is something called a nurdle. So if you guys look at that picture on the right-hand side, you're going to see it looks like those little tiny pellets that are in that person's hand. I want you guys to look around the room that you're sitting in right now, and I want you to notice everything that you see that is made out of plastic. I'll give you guys a second to go ahead and glance around your room. And I'm going to tell you some of the things in the office that I'm in that are made out of plastic. My cell phone case, the mouse to my computer. We have chairs at our desks, lots of computers, our printer, our trash can, our refrigerator has plastic parts in it. We have picture frames, we have bins with storage, our broom. What else do we have in here? Our telephone, a lamp. That's a lot of stuff. I'm sure you guys were able to name a lot of things in the room that you're in that are made out of plastic too. But all of those plastic items, they have to start out as something. And what they start out as are these teeny tiny little nurdles. Those are little plastic pellets, and that's what they use in factories to melt them down and turn them into these items that we use every single day. Now, I want you guys to imagine you were holding a jar of glitter, and you take the top off and you drop that jar on the ground. What's going to happen? Everything's going to spill, right? So that glitter is going to get all over the floor, and now you have to clean up this huge mess. So you go and clean up that glitter, but would you guys be able to get every single piece of glitter off the ground? Probably not, right? Because those pieces are so tiny. And that's exactly what happens in factories with these nurdles. They have big plastic bags full of nurdles, and sometimes, unfortunately, they do spill, and they're not able to pick up every single last one because they get lost since they're so small. So one thing that's happening a lot here in Texas, it started with a researcher at one of our universities, is he started walking along the Texas coast, and he noticed all these little plastic pellets washing up on the beach. And he was curious how many other places were finding these plastic pellets too. So he started what was called Nurdle Patrol. So he put a video out on Facebook. His name is Jace Tunnel. And he put a video out asking people who lived along the Texas coast if they happened to be out on the beach to walk along and see if they could find these plastic pellets too. And the crazy thing is that so many of us were finding them washed up on the beach. Now, this project started a couple years ago, and I first joined the group, and it only had maybe 100 people in it. Now, it's been around so long, it's gaining a lot of traction. This group has over 2,000 people in it, which is a lot of people going out and cleaning up all these little plastic pellets on the beach. But the cool thing that came from this project is they were actually able to test this plastic and figure out exactly what factories those were coming from. And what they discovered was there was a factory here in Texas that was spilling all these nurdles out into the environment, and they were able to track it to their factory, and they had to pay a certain amount of money to different organizations to go out and clean these things up, because these little pellets, they were washing out into the Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of wildlife has started to eat them for food. Now, if you guys look at the picture on the left-hand side, you'll see it says parrotfish eggs at the top. You guys can see how similar those fish eggs look to these tiny plastic pellets. Here at Sea Turtle Inc., these nurdles were a concern because we have little baby sea turtles that are making their way out into the ocean in the summertime, and these are the perfect size that those little sea turtle hatchlings could have easily eaten those as a source of food too. Now, plastic pollution doesn't just affect top predators, it affects every single level of the food chain. Now, raise your hand if you guys like eating seafood. I know I do. And unfortunately, a lot of that seafood that gets caught out in our oceans, at one point, they did consume some sort of trash while they were out in the water. And there's lots of research being done, but all of those chemicals from that plastic that these fish are eating could potentially leak into their bodies, into the meat that we would be eating as humans. So eventually that is something that could potentially affect us as well. Now, we talked earlier about other forms of marine debris like fishing line and fishing nets. Here you guys will see a picture of a turtle that was entangled in a net. And we do see that a lot here at our hospital too. Now, these photos that I'm sharing with you now are not the happiest of photos. These are actually dead turtles that washed up on our beach. Now, sea turtles have lungs just like we do. So they do have to come up to the surface to breathe. And when they do, that leaves the potential for them not to be able to surface because of these heavy things that they're dragging around. Now, that picture on the left, you guys will see that little juvenile green sea turtle there. That turtle was actually entangled in a net. And that net was so heavy that the turtle was not able to come to the surface. The picture next to that is a picture that was entangled in fishing line, really tightly around the turtle's flipper, as well as around the turtle's neck. Now, this is one of our current patients, and this turtle's name is Serectus. You guys can see how cute this little patient is here, but I'm going to show you a top view of Serectus. Now, what do you guys notice about this little patient? Serectus is missing flippers, right? So he's missing a good part of that flipper there on the front right-hand side. He's also missing one of his back flippers. Now, these injuries were already healed when Serectus washed up on the beach, but it's such a clean-cut injury, we don't think he lost his flipper from a predator. Chances are this turtle was entangled in something whenever it was out in the ocean, and eventually those tissues died. It lost circulation, and that flipper just fell away. We have had some crazy things like that happen here in our hospital too. Now, there is one story. I don't have any photos to show you guys, but I do want to tell you it because it is a good story to understand the impacts that plastic pollution has on sea turtles specifically, since we are at a sea turtle hospital. Now, I want you guys to look at the palm of your hand. Now, a sea turtle hatchling can fit in your palm. That is how tiny they are. Now, last year over in Florida, they had a little sea turtle hatchling wash up on the beach. And unfortunately, that turtle washed up dead. Now, a turtle that small that could fit in your palm is less than a month old, maybe a couple months old. And they wanted to know why a turtle so young so small, would wash up dead on the beach coming out of their natural environment. So they did a necropsy. They cut that turtle open. And what they found was that tiny little turtle had over 100 pieces of microplastic inside its stomach and intestines. And they did rule that as the cause of death. So even tiny little sea turtle hatchlings can get impacted by marine debris, just like all of the larger animals that you guys might think of, like large sea turtles or whales, dolphins, sharks, different animals like that. Now, what are some things that you guys can do to help reduce our impact on the environment? Now, these are things that don't really matter where you live because it's something that we can all do every single day. I'll give you guys a second to go ahead. You can write down if you have paper and pen in front of you, or you can say them out loud. Things that you guys can do to reduce your impact on the environment. And I'm going to tell you my list that I try and stick to. I'll give you guys a little bit longer in case you're still trying to think of some things that will help our planet. Now, some of the first things that I always hear people say, or my first thing that I always tell people to do that's very simple, is taking your own bags with you to the grocery store. Unfortunately, a lot of our grocery stores pack our food in plastic when it's time for us to take that food to our homes. But by taking your own bags with us, you're eliminating that one-time use plastic bag that often just gets thrown in the trash when you get home anyways. Something as simple as picking up trash, whether you're out on the beach like I would be here, or even just around your homes, around your schools. I bet if you guys all walked outside, if we were not on quarantine, walked outside, picked and just went walking down the street, all of you would be able to find at least one piece of trash on the ground. And by picking that trash up, you're making sure the environment stays clean for the animals that live around you, but you're also making sure that it doesn't make its way out into the water. You guys can also get reusable water bottles, so you don't have to buy those one-time use plastic ones. Or if you do, you can use that plastic water bottle over and over as well. And recycling. I know recycling is hard depending on where you live. I know we have a tough time with recycling down here on South Padre Island. But a lot of those items that are in plastic and aluminum and tin, they can be recycled and turned into other things. And then back to our balloons, right? If you guys have ever released a balloon up into the sky, you know that once it goes up, it must come down, right? Eventually they pop. Most of the time they do end up out in the water. And when they do, like we talked about, they look a lot like those food items that sea turtles like to eat. So if you guys do have a balloon, make sure you hold on onto it really tightly so it doesn't make its way up into the sky. And you guys can also come up with more turtle-friendly activities other than balloons, like planting a garden or planting a tree or something of that nature instead. Now, it is up to us to help save our planet, and I'm really excited because April is actually Earth Month, and we are getting really close to Earth Day, which is on April 22nd. So all these things that we talked about that even though we might not be able to do them right now since we are stuck at home in our shelter in place, they are things that we can do once our everyday lives return to normal. So I do want to take you guys downstairs so you can see some of our turtles in our hospital. We have about 15 minutes or so. And right now we have about 10 patients, I believe. So I'll have a lot of turtles to show you. Not all of them were impacted by trash. So I'm going to try and show you Surrectus first. That turtle is really difficult to show on camera though, because he likes to hang out at the back of his tank, but I will do my best. So I'm going to pause my video since I am sitting in our office. You guys won't be able to see me, but you will still be able to hear me. And what I'm going to do is make my way out of our office and go down towards our turtle tanks. And I'm going to try and show you guys as many turtles as possible. Now, since you guys are going to be watching this as a recording, I know that you can't ask any questions that you have about turtles right now, but you guys are able to, if you do have access to the internet, you can even tell your teacher, she can make up a list of questions that you guys had, and then I can answer those via email as well. So I am out in our hospital right now, and I am going to turn my camera on so you guys can see what our facility looks like. Now, we have been in this building since 1999. We've been here for quite a while. You guys will see a lot of things are kind of dated. We are in the process of getting everything in order because we do want to start renovations on this building. That is something that we were hoping to break ground on this year. I'm not for sure if that is still able to happen or not, but hopefully that is something that will be coming here in the near future. Now, we have done a lot of swapping turtles around, so I'm gonna have to roam around for a second and figure out where our rehab staff have this is in this tank. Of course, he's hanging out in the back, but I do have some of our other patients right here for you guys. So we have 5 turtles in this tank. Hopefully Sorrectus will come up here shortly. These are all juvenile green sea turtles. So I'm gonna put my hand here to give you guys an idea just how big these patients are. They're all under 10 pounds, so fairly small. Full-grown green sea turtles will get to be over 400 pounds. So these little patients have a lot of growing left to do. Now you guys will notice that these turtles, a lot of them have scratches like that in the back of their shell. So here on South Padre Island, we have a big ship channel that is on the north end as well as the south end of our island, and it's lined with big rocks. And that's where these big barges and ships come through to get to our bay. So those rocks have big gaps between them. Green sea turtles love feeding on seagrasses and algae. And unfortunately, when the water levels are really high, the tide is high, the turtles can get into those tight spaces to feed on the seagrasses. But when the tide goes out, sometimes they do get stuck. So these turtles were wedged so tightly that when we went to go pull them out of the rocks, it actually peeled back a layer of their shell. Now, sea turtles do have 2 layers to their shell. The top layer is a layer of keratin, just like your fingernails. Underneath that is a layer of bone. So this is the keratin that is peeled back. You actually are looking at exposed bone on these little patients. That orange area there in the center is kind of what a sea turtle scab looks like. The good news is, just like if you guys were to lose a fingernail, eventually it would grow back. The same thing happens with these turtle shells. They do heal, and shortly these little patients will get released. Now, the whole reason we came over to this tank was so I could show you guys Sorrectus. He started heading this way and then he turned around. So I'm gonna stay here for a second and see if I can't get him to come over here so you guys can get a better view. Now, these are wild animals, so they don't always do exactly what I want, but it looks like he might be coming this way perhaps. I'm gonna stay here a little bit longer. And he just came up to take a breath. There we go. So you guys can see he is missing that flipper in the back, that part of his flipper in the front. But as you're watching him, he didn't come very close at all. But he does swim fairly well. So anytime a turtle comes into our hospital, if they're missing 1 flipper, sometimes if they're missing 2, they are able to be released back out into the wild. Sorrectus swims very well in this tank. He's able to get all of his food off the bottom with no problem. So that is a patient that will get released in the future as soon as the minor injuries that he has are healed. Now, these other turtles that are hogging the camera here in the front, we have quite a few patients in this tank. El Tigre is in here, as well as Buddy. And then this little turtle right here is Crash, who's actually going to be getting released this week, which is exciting. El Tigre is the turtle that's right here, and then Buddy is the one that's on that side. Now, the cool thing about El Tigre is when this turtle came in, one of the first things that we always do when we get a new patient is check them for tags. And that tag helps us identify if that turtle has been here in the past. And El Tigre had a pit tag. So a pit tag you cannot see from the outside of the turtle. You actually have to use a special device and scan them. And if a number pops up, you know that turtle has a tag. So he did have a pit tag underneath his skin. So we looked up that number and we realized El Tigre had actually been at our hospital before. This is a little patient that came into our hospital last summer. He was stuck in the rocks down at the jetties, and we found him. He was with us for a month. His injuries were very minor, so he healed pretty quickly. And then we released him back out into the wild. Well, this winter, we had something called a cold stun that happened. So sea turtles are reptiles, so they are cold-blooded animals. Their body temperature is going to match the temperature of the water that they are in. And when we get cold fronts here in South Texas, our water temperature falls very drastically, and it can happen really quick. So when it does, that is when we get turtles that cold stun. They go into shock and they pretty much become lethargic. They're very tired, they get hypothermic, and they're not moving around a whole lot at all. So the waves will wash them up in different places. So the second time around when we found El Tigre, that turtle was stuck in the rocks again in almost the exact same spot. So that is one of his favorite places to feed on seagrasses and algae. It's right there in our shipping channel. He is pretty close to getting released, probably sometime in the next couple months. So hopefully we will not see that little patient back here in our hospital again. Now this tank that I'm standing at, you guys notice that the turtles are swimming right up to the camera and everything. They have been with us for a few months now, if not longer. So these turtles are getting really close to being released. Most of them are pretty healthy at this point, so they are going to be released soon. We also have another turtle that's going to be released soon, and it is one of our biggest patients, or it is our biggest patient that we have right now, and that is a turtle named Tilly. So let's see, here she is. So Tilly, you guys take a look at her, you might be able to guess why she is here in our hospital. Now, I mentioned earlier, sea turtles have lungs, so they do have to come up to the surface to breathe. And when they do, sometimes they get hit. And what would they get hit by out in the water? They get hit by boats. So that big area that you see, that white patch on the back of Tilly's shell, that is actually a boat strike injury. So she came up to the surface to breathe. She's zipping around pretty quick now. She came up to the surface to breathe, and unfortunately, she did get hit by a boat. She has been with us for 1 year now. She stranded on April, oh my gosh, it was mid-April last year. So she has had quite some time to heal. Her shell, we talked about how it's made out of keratin, like your nails, and bone. So over time, that broken bone does heal, just like your bones would. And when it does, the turtle can get released. And we're really excited because Tilly, she has been with us for around a year now. Her shell, even though it is a different color, it is completely healed. Over time, that keratin, that darker color, will grow in and cover the healed bone that's underneath. That will take a little while longer, but her shell is just about healed, and she is going to be getting released at some point this week too, which is really exciting. It's always bittersweet for us to send these turtles back out into the ocean because we will miss them. We do grow attached to them, but at the same time, we know that that is where these patients belong, is out in their natural environment. Now, Tilly's hiding. She went to go take a nap. This is one of her favorite places to lay, is underneath this pipe. She is not stuck, but we actually have, if you look over here, we have a current in our tank. So that helps keep the turtle's muscle strength up. They do have to swim against the current. So when she rests, she will wedge herself in places, most of the time under this pipe. And that is a behavior that they do out in the wild as well. Because if you imagine closing your eyes to take a nap, you don't want to wake up 10 miles away from where you started because of the current, right? So they're going to hunker down. They're going to hold on to coral. They're going to sit on the ocean floor where that current is not as strong. And that is going to prevent them from getting pushed around. So Tilly is a green sea turtle too. That is the main species that we get here in our hospital. And that has a lot to do with the nature of this area. So our island is obviously surrounded by water. but it's pretty shallow water. So we get a lot of seagrasses and algae that grows in this area. So our waters here off the coast of Texas are foraging grounds for green sea turtles. They migrate here primarily from Mexico, but over in Cuba and from Florida because there's an abundance of food for them in this area, and they can stay relatively safe from predators. Now, we have a lot of trash examples here at our facility. And since we did talk about trash, I'm going to go ahead and spin my camera around so you guys can see this. This was a plastic bag that we picked up off the beach. And if you guys look at all those diamonds, there we go, the lighting's a little better. What do you guys think those little diamonds are from? If you guys guessed sea turtle bites, you guys are correct. This is what a sea turtle bite looks like in trash. It looks like a little diamond because of the shape of their beak. And we see things like that wash up on our beaches all the time, which is really, really unfortunate. So I'm gonna make my way over to one of our other turtle tanks. I have shown you guys, oh, here we have a little patient. So this is Blues, and Blues is one of our newest turtles. This turtle just came in a few days ago. So he's not super active. He is diving though, which is really good. And he shares a tank with 3 other little turtles that are swimming around. Now this tank has a really strong current, so you guys will notice that the turtles might get zipping around pretty quickly. Most of the patients that we have in our hospital right now are here because they were stuck out in the rocks at the jetties, like I talked about with El Tigre and some of the other patients I showed you previously. So not a whole lot of impacts from humans, but we do get turtles that come into the hospital because of entanglement. We get turtles that lose flippers from that. So we see those types of things too. Now, right now is an exciting time here in Texas. We're kind of going to switch gears from trash for a second because it is nesting season here on our island. It's really windy, as you guys can see from my hair, but those are good signs because the turtle that lays eggs here in Texas loves nesting on days that are windy. And typically, sea turtles do nest at night, but the Kemp's Ridley nests in broad daylight. So now would be a great day. We do have staff out on the beach right now looking to see if we have had any nesting mamas. Nesting season officially started on April 1st, so it's only been about a week. But we had our first nest in Texas in a different area a few days ago. So we're hoping that we'll get our first nest on the island here pretty shortly too. Now we do have a couple Kemp's Ridleys in our hospital right now. So I'm gonna spin my camera around so you guys can see one of our Kemp's Ridley patients. This turtle is taking a little nap. This patient's name is Neptune. Now, on occasion, we will get turtles that come into our hospital and they don't have any major injuries externally that is going on with them. Their x-rays look great, their blood looks great. So we actually don't really know why they washed up on the beach. And unfortunately, Neptune is one of those cases. It was hard for us to pinpoint an exact reason why he was here, but we know that something is going on with him, even if he's just very weak from migrating. So that is why he is here in our hospital. We do have some other Kemp's. We'd have another Kemp's Ridley named Comet. Let's see if we can't spot what Comet is up to this afternoon. Looks like everybody is taking a nap. Now, these 2 Kemp's Ridleys are not adult sea turtles either. Comet is still really young, full grown. This turtle is going to be about 100 pounds. So a little bit bigger than the patient that you guys are looking at right now. I think Comet is between 50 and 60 pounds. But it's right about that time of day when the turtles ate breakfast this morning already, so they're all kind of snoozing. I'm going to take you guys to one more area of our facility since we have about 5 minutes left. And I'm going to show you one more patient. This is a turtle named Milo. And Milo came to the hospital. We believe actually this turtle was previously entangled. So this is a good turtle to look at from what we were talking about earlier. These are pictures of Milo, but you guys will see this area here on the turtle's neck. It looks kind of swollen. We believe that that turtle was entangled in fishing line for a while, and that's why that swelling is there in the neck. So let's see if we can't go see this little patient. This area is our clinic. So we do all of our major surgeries on this table right here. The turtles come in to get medications. We prep their food in this area. Like I mentioned, right now we don't have Milo must have been moved outside. So it might have been one of those turtles that I showed you guys already. Like I said, they move turtles around a lot on me, so I have to kind of figure out where everybody is situated. Let's see if he's in the back tank. I'm gonna go take a look. There's one tall tank out here that I haven't shown you guys that has some little juvenile green sea turtles. These are some of our smallest patients that we have. Let's see. Oh. So we have a little Daybreak there. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, so I think, if I'm not mistaken, this little guy down at the bottom is actually Milo. So he just got moved out into a bigger tank, which is really exciting. We always start them out in really small tanks because we don't want to, overwhelm them with space, but sometimes when they're very weak, we don't want to throw them into a really deep tank in case the turtle is not strong enough to swim. So the fact that this turtle got moved out into one of our deeper tanks that we have right now is a sign that that little patient is doing very well. Oh, there we go. So that's Daybreak and Astrid that you guys just saw swim across the screen. And these are two turtles that are getting released this week too. All right, we are just about out of time. I'm gonna spin my camera around so you guys can see me one more time. But before I do that, I'm gonna show you the turtles once more because they're all swimming up to the camera. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the impacts that marine debris has on our environment, and you guys liked seeing all of our sea turtles. I know everybody is sheltering in place. You're dying for things to do. If you guys do have access to the internet and you do have Facebook, you can follow Sea Turtle Inc. on Facebook, and we are doing Facebook Lives every other day. So that might be something that you guys are interested in to learn more about what we do here at our facility. We've been talking about all sorts of different topics, and we're just trying to keep people engaged and keep them learning about sea turtles. So that is a good option for you guys if you're looking for things to do at home when it's not during your normal school time and you do have access to the internet. But other than that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this program, and I hope you guys are staying healthy.
And thank you so much, Kristen, for this fantastic session. I am going to be sharing your website with the teachers so that there's some learning materials there as well, because I know you have a great number of resources. But thank you so much for spending part of your day with us and sharing those beautiful sea turtles. I know that as soon as we see the turtles, we really connect with them and the environment and how absolutely beautiful they are. So thank you
of course
so much. Just
yeah
gonna stop the recording.